Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. For this week, we're going to be doing another Halloween themed cake, of course, and it'll be a little bit less scary than last week's cake. So the first thing you always want to do is put a little smear of your buttercream onto your cake round because this is going to help kind of secure your layers to your rounds. So that way when you're decorating it, it won't be sliding around on you. It'll be pretty firm. So once you have those in place, you do want to make sure that, of course, you cut off any domes that are on your cake layers before stacking them. I just kind of went ahead and did this as I went. So I used an orange buttercream to go in between the layers here just to kind of pull it all together with that Halloween theme, the colors that I was using to decorate with. This is an apple spice cake. This cake came out so moist and so delicious. I literally just used a spice recipe. I took a can of apple pie filling. I diced them up real small, folded it into my batter, and I replaced the liquid for my cake batter with apple cider. It was amazing. Highly recommend you guys try it if you like apples, of course. So, of course, once you have your layers stacked and filled, you do want to go ahead and do a crumb coat. Now, the crumb coat is important because it helps kind of glue those layer of crumbs into your first coat of icing. So that way when you go to add your final coat of icing, nothing kind of pops through your decorations. So go ahead and give it a nice crumb coat, smooth it off. The smoother the crumb coat, the smoother your final coat will be. And then go ahead and place it in the fridge to set up and chill. Usually this takes about a good 15 to 20 minutes, a little bit less time if you put it in your freezer. So smooth it off and then let's begin the decorations. For this specific cake, I kind of was doing a linear theme. So I took black, purple, and of course the green that's already on this cake and kind of went around with lines, and I wanted to kind of pull it together with this new bench scraper that I had got. So what you want to do is put whatever color is going to be the base of your cake, put a nice thick layer on, because when you take your bench scraper and go around to kind of create those lines and where you're going to put the other colors, it can scrape a lot of that buttercream off. So give it a nice thick coat, smooth it with an offset spatula, just a little bit smooth. Of course, the bench scraper will do the rest of the smoothing for you. You just want to make sure it's pretty even and nice and thick on the sides. It'll just make your life a little bit easier later on. So once you're happy with the thickness of your first layer of buttercream, which of course I chose to do green, then I took my kind of serrated bench scraper. You can see it has these little tiny little squares kind of going in. And what this kind of helps you do is get your lines straight, and it pulls away a layer of that green buttercream. So that way when you are placing your other colors, it's already been taken away from you, so it gives it a nice cleaner look. So hold this vertically and just kind of make some smooth passes going around your cake until you're happy with it. Now, if you feel like some of these lines are a little bit sloppy, you can take a little bit more of that green buttercream and kind of place it where you feel like maybe there's an air bubble or something, and then continue around with this smoother. And you do want to make sure that you're also wiping off any excess buttercream, because what will happen is it will pile up onto your bench scraper and kind of put its way back onto the cake. So these nice little lines that it's opening for you to place your other colors in will fill in, and it won't look as pretty. So of course I put my purple and my black into a piping bag, cut the very tiny tip off the end just so that it fit nice and good in between these little gaps that this bench scraper had created for me. And then I began adding my colors. You can do this however you want. I decided I wanted a little bit more black versus purple. So I left the green on there. I took my purple, kind of went around every 4 little indents or so, and then I began to follow up with my black buttercream. So when you're doing this, you do want to make sure that you're pressing it and squeezing it while you're turning your turntable. So this will just kind of help ensure that you are getting the buttercream into those crevices all the way. And when you start with your flat-edged bench scraper, it will start to look like it's never going to come together. The last 2 colors that you add on top of this first layer of buttercream kind of smear together, and it can look like a mess. But as long as you keep continuously scraping off your bench scraper, take nice, even, smooth turns and passes around this cake, eventually the lines will show through, the green will start to pop back up. What you're kind of doing is just blending it and pulling it together. Now, once you feel like you've got all the colors where you want them to be and it kind of starts coming together so you can see that first layer of buttercream, you can take your spatula, run it under some super hot water. Of course, wipe off any water that's on your spatula and make slow passes around the cake. This will kind of help melt any air bubbles that can be trapped in there and kind of just smooth your frosting out a ton. So it's a big time saver. So also I decided, so I do have some really good, perfect smooth lines at the bottom, and then it was a little bit blurred at the top, but honestly, I just kind of got tired of playing with it. So I just left it. I thought it looked kind of neat anyway, a little bit more Halloween-ish. So I just left it as is. So once you're happy with the look, you can stop, and then I wanted to add sprinkles. So with the sprinkles, what I actually decided to do was put them in my hand and kind of roll them onto the bottom edge only of this cake. You can put them all the way to the top if you want. That's totally fine. One suggestion, which I didn't do, that I think you should do, is take a sheet pan, place it underneath your cake spinner, so that way all these sprinkles that are right now rolling onto my table and onto my floor, I wouldn't have to clean up later. They would just go right into the sheet pan, and then you can dump them back into your sprinkle container after you're done. So anyway, take your sprinkles, press them onto the cake. You can take your bench scraper at this point and kind of press them up against it as well, just to make sure they're kind of nice and secure so that they're not falling off after you're done decorating. And as soon as you're happy with your sprinkle placement, you can now start the rest of your decorations. So what I decided to do was I had some little bats and some purple skulls and some pretty orange and green sugar pearls inside of my sprinkle mixture. So I just decided to kind of sporadically place them up, going up to the top of the cake. And because I am going to be adding an orange drip onto this cake, I left enough space in between the sprinkles that I placed by hand, so that way the drip could make its way through the sprinkles. And after I was done with the black and purple sprinkles, I decided to bring up a little bit more of that lighter color of the cake up to the top. So I decided to add a little bit of those green and orange sugar pearls and just kind of bring them up. So after I was happy with my placement of the sprinkles, I began to make my ganache, which is of course white chocolate and heavy whipping cream. Melt it into the microwave. Make sure you have a nice consistency. Sometimes the white chocolate doesn't melt completely, and so at that point I take a strainer and I pour it in, so that way any of the chunks that can kind of not melt all the way stay in the strainer, and the rest of it, the nice liquidy smooth part of it, will go down into my cup or my squirt bottle. So once you have your ganache made, of course, if it's too thin, it'll be a little bit see-through and it'll just continue to drip. If it's too thick, it won't drip at all. So if it's too thick, pop it in the microwave for just a couple seconds. It'll get runny again. If it's too thin, you're just gonna have to let it sit at room temperature for a while, probably about 5-10 minutes, a little bit longer depending on how hot it is, until it thickens up on you. And then of course do a test drip on the back of your cake or wherever you'd like. So when you're doing your drips, I used a spoon. Usually I do use a squirt bottle, but because I was trying to be very careful because of the sprinkles I had placed, I just wanted to do it very carefully with the spoon. If you decide one drip's not long enough, you can always take a little bit more of that ganache, put it on top of the drip you've already created, and it will just continuously bring it down a little bit longer for you. So continue this all the way around. And then I just took the excess ganache, dumped it into the middle of the cake, and slowly spread it out with my spoon. Now, of course, before you put this ganache onto your cake, you do want to chill your cake first, because if you put hot ganache onto a room temperature buttercreamed cake, it can kind of melt that buttercream, and then it'll be a really sloppy cake, and you'll have kind of melted parts where there's going to be little indents and everything, and we don't want any of that. So chill your cake before ganaching it. So after I was done ganaching it, I did put a little bit of sprinkles right into the middle of the top layer before my ganache set up on me, because otherwise the sprinkles wouldn't stick. They just kind of roll off the top of the cake. So again, when you're done with this part, you want to again put it back into the fridge to chill, so that that ganache isn't warm before you're piping these little swirls onto the top of it. Otherwise it'll melt the bottom of the swirls and you'll have kind of a sloppier looking cake. So what I did was mix my black, my purple, and my green into one piping bag, use the star tip, and just began swirling it around and lifting it up at the top. And then while these were fresh, I put a couple more sprinkles, and this was it. I really hope you guys liked my video. If you guys want to see more, feel free to subscribe. I'll be doing another Halloween cake next week, and thank you guys for watching.